My first memories are being on a Navy base with my dad and his old crusty flying buddies, and the smell of, kerosene and the sound and the feel of an afterburner in your stomach. And I thought that's how everyone grew up, right? I'm like, that is so cool. I'm going to do that when I grow up.
This is the Future in Flight podcast, coming to you from a hangar somewhere near the flight line, where the coffee is mostly fresh and the snacks are enticingly lit in the vending machine. I'm Sean Starker, and today we're diving deep into stories and products that make aviation such a special place. We've got an incredible guest whose journey weaves together cutting-edge biomedical engineering, YouTube storytelling, and a family legacy that connects directly to Top Gun itself. Plus, we're spotlighting a revolutionary app that's changing how an entire generation learns to fly. And we'll take a look at one of aviation's most underrated workhorses, the Piper Cherokee 6, that flying station wagon that's been taking families and all their gear on epic adventures since the 1960s. Whether you're dreaming of becoming a pilot, fascinated by engineering innovation, or just love hearing how passion projects become game changers, this episode is packed with inspiration, practical insights, and stories that'll remind you why aviation captures hearts and minds like nothing else. So buckle up, we're about to take off on another incredible journey through the future in flight.
November 240 Foxtrot. You are cleared for VFR departure to the northwest. Runway 23.
Today, a story that weaves together engineering brilliance, fighter jet legacy, YouTube storytelling, and the power of perseverance. That's the sound of possibilities taking flight. And for our guest today, those possibilities have led down some fascinating paths. Brian Kincaid is an accomplished biomedical engineer who's revolutionized joint replacements, a private pilot who documents his cross-country adventures, and the son of a Top Gun graduate who's using YouTube to preserve aviation history. Talk about a renaissance man. Let's dive into a story that shows how the sky truly is just the beginning.
I love flying. I've always loved flying, and engineering was always my forte. Math and science came very easy to me in school. I didn't really have to try that hard. Shh, don't tell my teachers. I naturally gravitated towards math and science. It's all I knew, and I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a naval aviator, and my dad and all of his crusty old Navy buddies told me a math and science degree or an engineering degree will get you right to the front of the line.
An engineering path led Brian to a field that might seem completely unrelated to aviation. Biomedical engineering. But the precision, problem-solving, and innovation required in both worlds have more in common than you might think.
I got into R&D and testing of implants and making sure they're safe and effective, helping the R&D guys refine their designs. I talked to the FDA, I talked to regulatory bodies all over the world, and the real capstone of my career was redesigning an elbow implant that was the number one elbow in the world, but it had a lot of problems. The elbow is kind of an orphan joint. Hips and knees are where it's at. They're a commodity now. That's where the bread and butter is. That's where all the research dollars go, right? There were no ASTM or ISO standards to test elbows. I ended up developing all the tests on my own to make sure that we were developing a safe product, and those papers became the templates, which eventually became the ASTM standard, the first one in the world for how to design elbows and how to test them and prove they're safe and effective.
Think about that for a moment. Brian literally wrote the standards for how artificial elbows should be designed and tested, and he's not stopping there. The future of this field sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Biologics is the future, and 3D printing. In the future, you're still going to have some metal and plastic. It's probably going to be 3D printed very, very cost effectively. It's going to be made on demand. And the surgeon, he'll take a CT scan, send it to us of the patient. We have a computer algorithm written by a lot of really smart engineers that can analyze that joint in 3D and create a design. AI says this is the optimum design, the optimum size. It sends it to the 3D printer. Boom, boom, boom. It goes in a box. It gets sterilized. It shows up on the day of surgery, and into the patient it goes.
While Brian was making his mark in medical engineering, aviation was always running through his veins. And that connection to flight started very early. Like from birth.
I was born into it. I was born in Kingsville, Texas, while my father was finishing up his master's in aeronautical engineering and going through advanced fighter training for the Navy in 1970. My first memories are being on a Navy base with my dad and his old crusty flying buddies, and the smell of, kerosene and the sound and the feel of an afterburner in your stomach. And I thought that's how everyone grew up, right? I'm like, that is so cool. I'm going to do that when I grow up.
Brian's father wasn't just any naval aviator. He was part of aviation history, flying with some of the very men who inspired the movie Top Gun.
He was assigned to VF-114 aboard the U.S. Kitty Hawk. He did 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, 141 combat cruises. His landing signal officer on the Kitty Hawk was Pete Pettigrew. If you know that name, Pete is one of the founders and original instructors of Top Gun and was the consultant along with Duke Cunningham in making the original Top Gun film. Pete saw something in my dad, I guess, and sent my dad to Top Gun in 1973 in between his first and second combat deployments.
This rich aviation history might have stayed locked in the past if not for an unexpected discovery and the global pandemic that gave Brian time to explore it.
My dad was also an avid photographer and filmmaker. He had an 8mm camera with him and his 35mm Nikon with him at all times. Well, he took that 8mm inside the cockpit of the F4, and he generated about 4 to 5 hours of content from his combat cruises in Vietnam. My mom gave it to me several years ago, and I honestly didn't know what to do with it. And then COVID came along. I look over one day, and there's this cardboard box sitting in the corner with all these, 8mm reels. So I had them all digitized, and I got them back as MP4s, and I just sat down and I started watching them every night. So I wrote a letter. I reached out to all his crusty old Navy aviator buddies that I grew up with, and I said, hey, I've got this idea. I would love to do some reaction videos.
And that's how the Mad Duck Chronicles was born, a YouTube series where Brian shares this incredible historical footage with commentary from the very pilots who were there. It's living history and a beautiful tribute to his father. Despite growing up surrounded by aviation legends, Brian's own path to becoming a pilot wasn't without obstacles.
I started getting my pilot's license at 17, and then I quit when I found out I was colorblind. And I was told by the Navy recruiter I was talking to at the time to go to the Naval Academy that, well, we'd love to have you in the Navy, son, but you'll never fly jets. And I was like, no offense to anyone, but I don't want to go in the military and do a desk job. I'm going in the military to go with my hair on fire at Mach 2, right? And so I got really delusioned and depressed, and I quit taking pilot lessons at 17.
But that's not where the story ends. Years later, a gift from his wife changed everything.
For my 30th birthday, my wife gifts me private pilot ground school. And at the time, I was unemployed. We had just gotten married. We had a kid, and we didn't have a lot of money. And I'm like, what in the hell are you doing? And she's like, dude, all you do is talk about airplanes, stare at airplanes in the sky. You can identify any airplane that flies overhead. And it's obvious you love it. I don't understand why you're not doing it. Flying is flying. And, when she put it like that, I was like, you know what? You go 140 knots in a Cessna, I'm still flying an airplane.
Eventually, Brian became not just a pilot, but an aircraft owner. His ride of choice? A practical family hauler that's taken him on some epic adventures.
As soon as the COVID lockdowns were over, I planned a 10-day epic trek across the western half of the United States. That's the intro to the YouTube series I made out of it. It was my first attempt at a really big, large-scale, multi-camera storytelling YouTube video. We went out west. We went out the northern route. We flew or stopped at, all the major national parks along the way. We flew by Rushmore. We flew over Yellowstone. We flew into Reno, which was pretty cool. Flew over the Grand Canyon, did the Dragon Corridor and all that, and then flew home through the Southwest Passage back to Indiana.
Brian's YouTube channel, 60 Alpha, named after his aircraft's tail number, combines his love of aviation, filmmaking, and music. It's a creative outlet that connects with viewers in a unique way.
And so one of the things I try to do on my channel is kind of marry all of my passions, right? Flying, filmmaking, and music. I purposely scout and procure music for each of my YouTube videos, for each scene. And I try to use it to incorporate into the video, to enhance the video, to enhance the storytelling, to create the mood or the vibe. And I take a lot of pride in that. My wife tells me I spend too much time making videos. I probably spend 50 hours, 60 hours to produce a finished video.
For all the young people listening who might be struggling with setbacks or trying to figure out their path, Brian's story offers some powerful wisdom.
Perseverance,
Never give up on a dream. As I mentioned earlier, I gave up on flying at 17 because I was told I was colorblind and I would never fly Navy jets. And I thought that was the only kind of flying there was. And I missed out on some really great flying years. I didn't get my ticket till I was 31. Don't ever give up, and accept failure and know that failure is a part of life. It's how you react to the failure that matters. So the 17-year-olds out there that are struggling or think that your dreams can't come true, they may not come true the way you envision them as a 4-year-old kid, sitting in the cockpit of an F-14, but they can come true in some form or another if you persevere.
Brian's journey shows us that our paths aren't always straight lines. Sometimes they're more like aerobatic maneuvers. From biomedical engineering breakthroughs to preserving aviation history to flying his own cross-country adventures, Brian's living proof that you don't have to choose just one passion. For our listeners who want to follow Brian's adventures or check out his Mad Duck Chronicles series, you can find him on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at 60Alpha. That's the number 6 and the words 0 and alpha. Whether your interests lie in aviation, engineering, filmmaking, or music, or all of the above, remember that the skills you develop in one area often enhance what you do in another. And if you face obstacles along the way, let Brian's story remind you that detours aren't dead ends, they're just part of the journey. Up next, a look at some game-changing new software that's helping pilots review their flight data. And later, we take a deeper look at the venerable Piper Cherokee 6 in our Vintage Aircraft Spotlight. Hold short, we'll be right back. Trusted in aviation training since 1940, ASA creates first-class products that empower pilots and mechanics to succeed. Whether your journey involves earning your airman certificate, flying or maintaining a new aircraft, or climbing the career ladder. Backed by integrity and exceptional customer service, our pilot supplies, books, and digital training help you navigate the dynamic aviation landscape. With ASA by your side, the sky is not the limit, it's just the beginning. What if I told you there's an app that could save you thousands of dollars on flight training? What if that same app could connect you with pilots flying gliders over the Australian outback, or help you replay your first solo flight in stunning 3D whenever you want to relive that moment? Meet FlyORKA, an app that's turning smartphones into flight training tools and creating a global community of pilots who want to help each other get better. But this isn't just another aviation gadget. This is about changing how an entire generation learns to fly. Picture Instagram, but instead of posting your lunch, you're sharing your flight path over the Rocky Mountains. Instead of liking photos, you're getting real feedback from certified flight instructors around the world.
FlyORKA means to fly well, to fly with grit, to fly with energy, to fly inspired, to fly with focus. And in a way, it's like when you feel good, usually everything you do is better.
That's Adriana Barragan, the app's creator. And right there, she hits on something crucial. Flying isn't just about technical skills. It's about mindset, community, and staying inspired when you're spending $150 an hour to learn something that can be terrifying.
FlyORKA is your flight recorder. You can share your flights. You can track your flying activity. You can message pilots and instructors.
But here's where it gets interesting for people who aren't even pilots yet.
The app is valuable to those interested in flying because they can message active pilots and instructors without being in aviation. They can look at their flights. They can search for flights that student pilots are making to see how pilots train.
Let's talk about the elephant in the hangar, money. Learning to fly costs about as much as a year of college tuition. For a private pilot certificate, you're looking at $10,000 to $15,000. For young people trying to break into aviation, that's crushing. But FlyORKA attacks this problem in a clever way.
What the app is doing is giving you a tool to make sure that before you get into that airplane, you're very intentional about what do you want to get out of that And how do you want to spend your time?
Here's how it works. After every flight, you can replay it in 3D. Not just a line on a map. We're talking realistic scenery, accurate airplane models, even wind data. You can see exactly where you messed up that landing or nailed that perfect turn.
You can play your flight as many times as you want. You can go over it. We give people the opportunity to stream their flights with a very realistic environment. It's almost like flight simulator.
But FlyORKA isn't just about individual improvement. It's creating something that never existed before. A global flight school where everyone's a teacher and everyone's a student.
Australia, South America, US, this is a global company and we have users globally. You can send them a message.
Think about that for a second. You're a 17-year-old in Ohio dreaming of becoming a pilot, and you can directly message someone flying crop dusters in Argentina or bush planes in Alaska or gliders in the Swiss Alps.
It'll be a lot quieter once we release from the tow plane.
If you have heard the song Paradise by Coldplay, the aviation community is that type of tribe. So don't hesitate because they are ready for you.
Here's where FlyORKA gets really smart about learning. Instead of just logging hours like pilots have done for decades, you're logging experiences, mistakes, victories, all this stuff that help make you better.
The tracking your flying activity is a great supplement to a paper logbook because in a pilot logbook, we enter our time. But this app you are going to be tracking activity. And that means, what did you do? What can you take away from this flight?
Adriana compares it to athletic training.
That's how athletes train. That's how champions train. And when you look at how much does a minute in an airplane is costing you, oh boy, you have to be intentional. You can't just show up and chill. Unless you are rich, and you don't care.
There's a crisis brewing in aviation that most people don't know about. Flight instructors, the people who teach new pilots, are disappearing. They're burned out, underpaid, and moving on to airline jobs as fast as they can get them.
Right now, unfortunately, we only have a few instructors that are committed to educating because most of them are not able to continue to instruct for many difficulties. So we are losing many instructors.
FlyORKA is trying to solve this by creating a platform where serious instructors can build actual teaching businesses, not just collect hours.
Through the app, we are allowing people to discover training from instructors who own their own teaching businesses. They do it as a profession, and they are committed to mentor, coach, and develop the type of pilots we want in command.
Maybe the most beautiful thing about FlyORKA is how Adriana describes what she's really building.
You can think of it as a digital airport that is active. People are flying. You can talk to people. It's not an airport that is empty with no activity.
A digital airport. Think about that. Not just an app, not just a tool, but a place where dreamers and doers gather, where questions get answered, where the next generation of pilots learns not just how to fly, but how to fly well. Whether you're 16 and can't afford flight lessons yet, or 24 and finally ready to chase that pilot dream, FlyORKA is betting that the future of aviation isn't just about hours in the cockpit. It's about community, intention, and turning every flight into a lesson that sticks. Download it, message a pilot, see for yourself what happens when you join a digital airport. Up next, the Vintage Aircraft Spotlight, where we take a look at some notable aircraft throughout history. Now, we're diving into another edition of the Vintage Aircraft Spotlight, where we dive deep into the aircraft that has shaped aviation history and continues to inspire pilots today. Today, we're talking about what some like to call the flying station wagon of general aviation, the Piper Cherokee 6. This airplane might just be one of the most underappreciated workhorses in aviation history. Picture this. It's 1965, and families are getting bigger, businesses need to move more people and cargo, and pilots are looking for something that bridges the gap between a 4-seat trainer and an expensive twin-engine aircraft. Enter Piper Aircraft with a brilliant solution. Take the reliable PA-28 Cherokee, stretch it by 4 feet, widen it by 7 inches, and stuff a powerful 6-cylinder engine up front. The result? The Cherokee 6, officially designated the PA-32, and it was exactly what the market needed. Let me paint you a picture of this aircraft. Imagine walking up to what looks like a Cherokee that hit the gym and bulked up. At 27 feet 7 inches long with a 32-foot 8-inch wingspan, it's not huge by today's standards, but in 1965, this was a game changer. But here's what really sets it apart, that big double door in the back. We're talking about a door so wide you could almost drive a golf cart through it. Pilots have been known to load everything from baby grand pianos to wheelchairs with ease. And while you might not be able to actually take the golf cart, taking 4 sets of golf bags is light work. One owner I read about really did transport a baby grand piano in his Cherokee 6. Try doing that in a 4-seater. Now let's talk power. Piper initially offered this bird with a 260 horsepower Lycoming IO 540 engine, but pilots quickly realized something. This airplane had an appetite that the 260 horsepower couldn't quite satisfy. It was like putting a motorcycle engine in a pickup truck. It worked, but you knew it could be better. So in 1966, Piper introduced the 300 horsepower fuel-injected IO 540 version, and that's when the Cherokee 6 really found its stride. Suddenly you had an airplane that could cruise at 148 knots, that's about 170 miles an hour, while carrying over 1,400 pounds of useful load. To put that in perspective, that's like carrying 6 adults plus their luggage or enough cargo to supply a small expedition. The performance numbers tell the story. A climb rate of 1,350 feet a minute when lightly loaded, a service ceiling of 20,000 feet, and a range of up to 900 nautical miles. These weren't just impressive numbers on paper, they translated a real-world capability that pilots could count on. But here's what made the Cherokee 6 special. It retained the simplicity that made the Cherokee family famous. Fixed landing gear meant lower maintenance costs and insurance premiums. The systems were straightforward and reliable. A pilot transitioning from a PA-28 Cherokee could feel right at home, just with more airplane around him.
Make left close traffic behind the Cessna on the upwind, runway 27 left, clear for takeoff.
Close traffic, clear for takeoff, 27 left for 0.
Of course, no airplane is perfect, and the Cherokee 6 has its quirks. The fuel system is, let's call it, involved. With 4 tanks, 2 mains, and 2 wingtip tanks totaling 84 gallons, you have to stay on top of fuel management to keep the airplane balanced. The rule is simple. Fill the outboard tanks first, use the mains first, and switch tanks every 15 to 30 minutes. Miss that routine, and you might find yourself with a lopsided airplane. And then there's the fuel burn. At 15 to 17 gallons an hour, this isn't an airplane for the budget-conscious flight training market. But for serious transportation, it makes sense. You're getting near twin-engine capability with single-engine operating costs. The Cherokee 6 found its calling in roles that demanded versatility. Air taxi operators love it for its passenger capacity and cargo hauling ability. Photographers use it for aerial work thanks to those big windows and stable platform. Skydiving operations appreciate the spacious cabin and large door. And families? Well, families finally had an airplane that could take everyone and everything on vacation without leaving half the luggage behind. In fact, one of my most favorite memories as a child is of an epic cross-country trip we took in ours. We brought an airplane full of family from Florida to Utah and saw all the sights along the way. The Cherokee 6 had a production run that lasted from 1965 to 1979, with 1,647 aircraft rolling off the line. Of those, 661 were the 260 horsepower models, and 986 were the preferred 300 horsepower versions. Today, finding a good Cherokee 6 isn't easy. They're still working hard in service around the world. If you're shopping for one today, expect to pay anywhere from the mid-90,000s for a high-time basic aircraft to over $400,000 for a beautifully restored low-time example with modern avionics. The sweet spot seems to be around $150,000 to $200,000 for a decent aircraft that'll serve you well. What happened to the Cherokee 6? Well, like many great designs, it evolved. In 1980, Piper introduced the Saratoga with a more modern, tapered wing and complex systems like retractable landing gear. But that original Cherokee 6 formula, simple, spacious, and capable, remains as relevant today as it was in 1965. Here's what I find fascinating about the Cherokee 6. It proved that sometimes the best solution isn't revolutionary technology or groundbreaking design. Sometimes it's taking something that works well and making it bigger, stronger, and more capable. The Cherokee 6 was evolutionary, not revolutionary, and that's exactly what made it successful. The Cherokee 6 proved you could do serious work with a single engine, fixed gear, and straightforward systems. As we wrap up today's spotlight on the Piper Cherokee 6, I want you to remember this. Aviation isn't always about the fastest, the newest, or the most technologically advanced. Sometimes it's about the workhorses, the aircraft that show up every day, carry the load, and get the job done without drama or fanfare. The Cherokee 6 may not be the prettiest airplane in the sky, and it's certainly not the fastest, but it's honest, capable, and reliable, qualities that never go out of style. That's a wrap on this edition of the Vintage Aircraft Spotlight. Next time you see a Cherokee 6 at your local airport, take a moment to appreciate what you're looking at. Not just an airplane, but a piece of aviation history that's still writing its story every day. And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Future in Flight podcast. From Brian Kincaid's incredible journey combining biomedical engineering with preserving Top Gun history, to the revolutionary training platform that is FlyORKA, to the timeless utility of the Cherokee 6, today's show perfectly captures what this podcast is all about. These stories remind us that aviation isn't just about the aircraft we fly. It's about the dreams we chase, the obstacles we overcome, and the communities we build along the way. Whether you're just starting out or have some time, remember that everyone's journey is unique and every path has value. Before you taxi back to your day, I need a huge favor. If this episode inspired you, educated you, or just made your commute a little more interesting, please hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. Your reviews help other aviation dreamers find our show, and they genuinely make my day when I read them. Seriously, knowing that we're helping spark someone's passion for flight, that's what keeps the hangar door open around here. You can find all our episodes wherever you get your podcasts, and connect with us on social media for behind-the-scenes content and updates on upcoming guests. To every listener out there, thank you for letting us be a part of your aviation journey. Thank you for your passion, your curiosity, and for believing that the future in flight is brighter because of dreamers like you. Until next time, we'll see you out there and up there.